So you finished with your tooth preparations for your fixed bridge and what to do next. The first thing is, and this is what you would do clinically, is you would make a bite registration with bite registration paste. Now, bite registration paste it's a PVS material, but it's different than regular impression material. It sets up very quickly, and it's a little stiffer as well. And it comes in actually different stiffnesses, if that's a word.
The one we have in the clinic is called Regisil.
Yeah, there's actually two that we have in the clinic. One is Regisil, like Dr. Tobo mentioned. We have another one that's even stiffer that is called Futar D. Futar D is good if you have a situation where you've prepared, say, some posterior teeth and there's no stops. You've taken the tops off all the teeth. A stiffer material, if you can imagine, is going to be better for mounting, and that's what this is for. So I've already trimmed mine, and the reason that we trim it is we don't want, with these bite records, less is more. If you have a lot of coverage, a lot of surface area, you're interacting with a model, because this is used for mounting in the lab on the articulator. The more contacting surfaces that you have between those models and between a bite record, the more potential error there is too, because those are copies of copies. Okay, you've taken an impression, you've poured it up, you're losing accuracy with every step. So to minimize the bad influence from a bite record, we trim them down so that they just touch the top of the preparations. And that goes for both upper and lower teeth as well. So like that, they would, you trim it back so just the tips of the cusps and the tips of the opposing teeth are involved. And it's just an extra index so that when and it's taken with the patient in maximum intercuspation. That is the way that they close, and so you'll use that to mount your models correctly. We don't want the bite record going up on the adjacent unprepared teeth unless those teeth don't contact one another. So if you had a patient, say, for instance, that maybe had a Class 2 Division 1 relationship of their anterior teeth, and you were preparing other teeth, well, you could do a bite registration between those unprepared teeth that don't touch, because that will help index and orient the upper and lower cast. But where the teeth are unprepared and you haven't taken anything off of them, if you try to take a bite registration over that, you actually introduce error and you separate, because it's such a tight approximation that it adversely affects the accuracy. So you just want it over the prepared teeth. You don't want it to touch gingival tissues, and you don't want it to go up onto the occlusal surfaces of unprepared teeth. So that's the bite registration. We'll show you later how that's used in the mounting process, but that's part of what you do clinically. The next thing is the face bow, and you can use 3 tabs. I prefer 4. It just gives you a little bit more stability. You take these little bite tabs and put one near the canine. And remember, if you were doing this in the clinic, I'd be all gloved up, gowned up, and everything else. But in our preclinical setting, in an effort to save some of that PPE, we're not doing it. And then the other set goes back by the second molars. So these tabs just stick onto your bite fork like this. And make sure they're firmly attached and on the bite fork. And you can even kind of check and see, well, you know, how does it look here? Is it going to go? Yeah, it's pretty close. That's where it is. It's lining up with the canine area and the second molars. So the next step is to heat it up, and I hope Roberto's given me enough hot water here.
You need a bigger bowl.
We'll see. We'll blame it on Roberto if we don't have enough there. So we'll let that heat up, and then in the clinic, you can do a face bow with just you and the patient. With a mannequin, it takes 3 people because you don't have the patient's hands to help you. So we're gonna let that, would somebody hold that there just to make sure it stays covered? Ooh, we don't want to spill. Okay, so your face bow. You've seen this before, but as a review, you've got a nasion locator. You also have a suborbital pointer right here. You could put a little mark or eyeball, no pun intended, where the base of the orbit is, right? And that's what that pointer is used for. It's also kind of an eyeball poker, so I don't like to use the suborbital pointer, so just tighten it down if you're not going to use it so it doesn't swing and hit him in the eye when you're using it. Nasion works very nicely for that. And if this was a patient that we were taking this on, I'll explain to you how you wouldn't need all the people around to help you hold it. So when you do a face bow on your mannequin, you're going to need a couple of classmates to help out. So before we take that out of the hot water, the other thing you have to do, this transfer assembly goes into, and it can go both ways, into this face bow. There is an A on the face bow, and there's an A on the proper end that is inserted into the face bow. You notice the bottom end doesn't have anything on it, so but it could be inserted. You'd be upside down. So insert A like that into the bow itself. Make sure the joints down here are loose so that you can adjust them. And now set that aside, that's all ready to go. And now I need to have a couple of helpers come over here, and we'll have one on the left side of our patient, one on the right side of our patient. And you're going to help, you're going to be the hands of the patient. One will be the mandible, raising the mandible up, closing, and the other one will guide the bow into the ears. So the next step is to take your bite fork, and what I normally do at this point is I say to the patient, I hand them 2 cotton rolls to put in the left hand of the patient. We're going to pretend that Roberto's hand is the patient's left hand, and I'm going to take the 2 on the right, and I simply say to the patient, we're going to set this up against your top teeth. The cotton rolls are just for support so that when you close, it'll hold this up against your top teeth. I'm going to put these 2 in on the right, while you, Mr. Patient, put those 2 in on the left. And so you come around like this, and you put your bow in place. Let's see, kind of get it lined up, and then patient, close, all the way, squeeze a little. I didn't line it up exactly, but it's okay, it's gonna work. So at this point, the patient would simply be closed and holding on to the bite fork, right? Then you come around here, and this is where the patient would help you by actually holding on to the sides of the bow and directing it into both ears. And so this is what I say to the patient. I am going to be sliding that peg right there through this hole as you direct these white knobs into each ear, okay? Make sure nasion is pulled back all the way or it'll hit him in the face. So we're going to do this at the same time. It has to all go on in the same fell swoop, as it were. So, Mr. Patient, grab onto the sides and go right to both ear holes all the way. These mannequins are really a long-faced person. So, firmly in both ear holes, and this is what you say to the patient at this point. Equal pressure, both sides, pull forward slightly, and it just sets these earpieces against the bony portion of the ear canal, okay? Now the other thing you can do with this face bow is you can set the horizontal plane. So if their face, if you're doing a case that requires everything be lined up with their face, and anything in the front will do that, you also want to use the bow to line up with the horizontal plane of their face and the world. some ears, my ear on one side, I mean, whenever I get a new pair of glasses, they have to adjust the earpieces funky because I have one ear that's about a centimeter lower than the other ear, you know? And that's not uncommon. Most of us are crooked a little bit. And so you can make up for that. So if we just allowed the patient to put it in their ear holes, the face bow might be a little tweaked, right? And that's okay, because one part of the face bow is to give us an approximate hinge axis, and that would do that, and it would be close enough. But if it's an aesthetic case, get in the habit, before you ever put the bow on, of looking and deciding, is it the interpupillary line? Is that what is the horizontal plane for them? Sometimes it is. Most of the time it is. If you line up the plane of occlusion with the interpupillary line, it'll work. But if you're working with Tom Cruise or Tom Brokaw, their faces are really crooked. You have to maybe pick something that's an average. And so you wouldn't line up with their eyeballs. Their occlusal plane may really be off kilter. So this is where you set up the occlusal plane, however you decide to do it. So you adjust nasion, let that go right into the nasion position like that. Now you move that forward and lock it in position. And then you get in front of the patient. And the patient is sitting, this is as high as I can get a mannequin. The patient is up in the chair, they're sitting up, you're looking at them at face level when you do this. And then you're looking at them and you have them open their eyes and look right at you and steady the bow just like you want it with the world. Then snug each of the joints here. If I can find it, there we go. We'll snug that one. At first, you're just snugging them. So that's all you do. Now, if you leave it like that, it'll move on you. So then you check your orientation. Okay, check your orientation and then say, Mr. Patient, I'm gonna tweak this pretty hard, so hang on. See, it's a little loose there still. And really crank it down. And check, I didn't move it, we're still lined up. And it's tight. Now at this point, bring nasion back and instruct the patient to open, and you catch the cotton rolls as they come out, and you've got your face bow transferred. Now, once you've taken the face bow, the bow itself can be returned to the dispensary. This is the only part that you need, and this, for mounting. So then, you'd come to your articulator, you have to put a magnetic mounting plate on. You need to change out the incisal guide table to this transfer base that's placed down there. You put that in place, slide it in all the way, and then this goes in like that, and that's how you mount your maxillary model. Once the maxillary model is mounted, then you use your bite record to help orient the lower model to the upper model and mount that. And then this stand comes in handy for that. And we'll show you that when it's time to mount the lower model. Okay, any questions on taking a face bow on a mannequin? There's a good video on YouTube that we've published on our site that describes doing this clinically and the mounting process, but pre-clinically, we didn't have anything until now to kind of show you how to do the face bow transfer. Thank you.